this week's special guest host, Jalen Rose. Tonight, from the red-hot Phoenix Suns, NBA Coach of the Year, Mike Dantoni. First place Angels manager, Mike Scioscia. And Indians outfielder, Coco Crisp. Why, he soon could be MC Crisp. Plus, ever wondered what it's like to own an NBA team?
Robert Sarver, he got it!
But that's not all. The great one moves behind the bench. Referees want Van Gundy launched out of town. And this got us to thinking.
Now there's a steal by Bird.
The Boston Red Sox are world champions.
Which of these playoff moments is Beantown's best? It's gonna be wicked awesome. The best damn sports show period starts right now.
People trip. They hurt. Tony Danza running the camera today. Hey there! Welcome to the Best Damn Sports Show. Period. I'm your host, Chris Rose. We've got only 60 minutes to show you Tony Danza almost breaking his neck and the fridge stuffing his face with cake. But first, you, of course, hunger for the information from these three gentlemen, including a two-time All-Star, world champion with the Reds in 1990, Rob Dibble! He's a 16-year NFL vet. Say hello to Rodney P. And join us all week as a special guest host from the Toronto Raptors, my man Jalen Rose. Dude, you're like the teen idol out here. All the girls are screaming for Jalen Rose.
Hanging out with you a little bit. Hanging out with you a little bit.
Yeah, what's going on there? What'd you do, import him from Toronto?
I don't know. We got to talk about that after the show.
Nice, nice. All right, well, actually, speaking of talking, let's get right to it. Time to unveil tonight's starting lineup. Subjects that are heating up the sports world. Bat and leadoff tonight. A touch of greatness in Phoenix. Several NHL sources say Wayne Gretzky is about to agree to a new 3-year extension that would land him behind the Coyotes' bench once play resumes. Gretzky owns 17% of the Phoenix franchise, but he's never coached at any level. I'm thinking he has some credibility among his players. 894 goals, nearly 2,000 assists, a 9-time MVP, 4-time Stanley Cup champ, and his number 99 has been retired throughout the entire league. Now, you played for a few, and not only real good players, but superstars and Hall of Famers in Larry Bird and Isaiah Thomas. Why doesn't it always translate from great player to great coach?
Because a lot of time when you're a great player, you want a player to make the kind of sacrifices you made or have this kind of talent to execute situations that you had. And all the time, obviously, that's not the case. And when you're a great player, sometimes that gets frustrating.
But Larry Bird was a pretty good coach.
Larry Bird was a heck of a coach. He took us to the NBA Finals. And ironically, I played for 3 Hall of Fame coaches, Dan Nissel, Isaiah Thomas, and Larry Bird. And they all took me to the playoffs. And Larry Bird really took my game to another level. So big up, Larry.
Hey, you played for Larry Brown, too.
Yeah, I played for Larry Brown. Definitely. He's a Hall of Fame coach, but he's not a Hall of Fame player.
Ah, okay.
I started my career with Pete Rose, was my first manager. And the thing about Pete was patience. And I think a lot of great players don't have a lot of patience with young players and want them to really get better with age. And I think that was the thing about Pete. He was great. He was great at instructing, and he was great at teaching. So I think that was one of his best attributes.
Do you think the biggest misnomer is that players don't want to listen to coaches these days? I mean, did you guys listen? What did Larry Bird say that,
Larry Bird was like E.F. Hutton. He didn't say too much, but when he talked, you listen. And because of that, he had a great championship-type aura. We knew his pedigree, and every time he said something, we took heed to it, and we tried to improve our games because of it.
Your sport, it's a little different. I mean, you can think of Mike Ditka, a Hall of Fame player, and then a great coach as well. But, think of the best coaches out there right now. Belichick, he didn't play. Parcells really didn't make a dent as a player. Why?
No, it's hard to say, and I think that a lot of times when you have great athletes that turn into coaches, sometimes those athletes that do turn into coaches want their players to be just like they were and have the same kind of habits and same kind of mannerisms as they did when they were a player, and it doesn't always translate.
Anybody up here want to coach or manage after they're done?
That's something I may look into doing.
Pop Warner.
Some of both.
Pop Warner?
Yeah, Pop Warner.
Both.
Little League.
Yeah. You couldn't coach our softball team right now. What are you talking about? All right, guys, another coach is batting second in tonight's starting lineup. Dibs, I always kill you. I'm sorry. I like you, though. Actually, I should say Jeff Van Gundy is caught in the firing line. The NBA Referees Association wants a Houston coach canned for questioning the integrity of the league's officials during the first round of the playoffs. Van Gundy said an official not working his series told him Yao Ming was being targeted by other refs. The league fined the coach a record $100,000. Van Gundy backtracked, saying he was talking about a league official, not a ref. The NBA said, great, case closed. but not according to the refs union, which released a statement saying he called into question the reputations of all NBA game officials. The matter will truly be closed only when Van Gundy is fired.
Wow, that's a little bit. Well, that's a little bit extra to say the least. Obviously, the officials, some of them probably took it more personal than others, but he never called anybody by name, and I think this is an issue that kind of is getting overblown at this point.
And he paid $100,000, the most in the history of fines for head coaches. So yeah, he's paid his price. Let it go. Let it be over with.
And what coaches get paid to do is protect their team and protect their players. And Van Gundy was protecting Yao Ming.
But he was questioning the integrity of the league by saying another NBA
But
official.
if he really feels that and believes that, then you got to voice your opinion. And he paid for it, $100,000.
Absolutely, he paid for it.
And people question the officials on every play. Every time you see a whistle blown, a guy from one team or another is upset with the call. So people criticize the officials all the time. They should be used to that.
And integrity, call a traveling, violation once in a while.
Exactly.
How about once a decade?
There's a something called superstar calls and anything else.
If any of you guys were playing for the Rockets next year, would you be worried about,
No, absolutely not. The referee's job is to be unbiased, regardless of whether I saw you last night at the club or whether
you see refs in the club?
Yeah, I mean, they're human beings. So a lot of times they could be anywhere at any given time, and they have opinions, they have judgments as well. So their job is to be unbiased.
Exactly.
And if they come into the game with a bias, then they have a problem.
And plus, they're under review as well. I mean, they get reviewed just like we do. When after the game's over with, they go watch the tapes, and they have a review board that looks at them and see if they're making unfair calls and of that nature. And so their job's on the line. I'm sure all these officials want to work the playoffs because there's extra money in it. So they're not going to, make some bad calls.
And how much has Mark Cuban spent on criticizing officials over the last few years? He's been fined over $1 million because he doesn't like the officials.
Did you ever feel like you were targeted?
Absolutely not.
No?
And as many times as I got ejected in Major League games, I never felt that a call went against me when I was pitching.
Ejected?
A few times.
I like to wonder what the NBA does with some of this money. I mean, you talk about $100,000. You talk about Ron Artest losing millions of dollars this year. What does the NBA do with some of that
Big
money?
parties.
Yeah, throw a hell of a party.
Big parties.
You don't get invited to that one?
Not at all. Not at all. They can send some of the checks, though.
So, look, the big question is, did he talk to a referee or didn't he? The truth is, nobody knows for certain whom Coach Jeff Van Gundy spoke to, but Coach Jeff Van Gundy himself. Now, we got our hands on a recent photograph, however, that may shed some light on the situation. Maybe he only thought he was talking to a referee, so let's take a look. Interesting. If he's not careful, he may end up working there in the near future. Who knows? All right, guys, let's move on. And batting third in tonight's starting lineup is maybe hockey's greatest goal ever. Happened 35 years ago tonight, Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Bruins and Blues, 40 seconds into OT, and Bobby Orr, he was tripped, and he beat Glenn Hall, eventual Hall of Famer. It was Boston's fourth Cup win, first since 1941. Look at that. One of the most lasting images in the history of sports photography, without a doubt. I mean, do you even remember that?
Absolutely. Growing up in Connecticut, absolutely. Bobby Orr was, and my brother played hockey growing up, so he was one of my brother's idols.
Well, some Bostonians actually prefer to discuss the heartache that comes along with being a fan in Beantown, but there have been some great postseason parties. Hopefully you'll get invited to one, Jalen. Okay. Here's a few of our favorites in another edition of Gimme 5. Number 5, this bird soars.
And now there's a steal by Bird. Underneath the DJ, lays it in.
Number 4, V is for victory.
Adam Vinatieri, no time on the clock, and the Patriots have won Super Bowl 36.
Number 3, who stole the ball?
Greer putting the ball on a play. He gets it out deep, and Havlicek steals it. Over the sand goes. Havlicek stole the ball. It's all over. It's all over.
Number 2, stay fair.
The 1-0 delivery to Fisk. He swings, long drive, left field. If it stays fair, it's gone. Home run. The Red Sox win.
And number 1, reverse the curse.
Back to Folk. Red Sox fans have longed to hear it. The Boston Red Sox are world champions.
Best Boston memory postseason?
Last year.
You think that was?
Oh, absolutely. All my friends and relatives and stuff like that are Red Sox fans, so put that to rest.
Yeah, I mean, I like last year, but I still love that Carlton Fisk.
Yeah.
Stay fair. Stay fair. That'll last in my mind for a long time.
Wow, to see Isaiah Thomas throw that inbounds pass. I remember being a kid growing up in Detroit, Michigan, and my heart just sunk when Larry Bird stole that pass. And ironically, both of those guys were my coaches, so Wow.
You're the link.
Yeah, I'm the missing link, definitely. But also, I had a great moment going back to Indiana when Larry was the coach, and he got a chance to address his Boston fans as a member of the Indiana Pacers. So that was a great memory as well.
Very nice. Very nice. It was a bad day for Sally, who, of course, isn't here today. He was on the bench that night. All right, guys, don't go anywhere. Here's what's coming up.